Welcome to the Raptors Weekly Podcast for July 18th, and I'm joined today by the hardest working sports reporter in Toronto, the gonzo journalist himself, Blake Murphy.
Hey, what's going on, man?
Not bad. You just came back from a summer league in Las Vegas, and I know, Blake, I apologize that the Raptors Republic does not have the budget to keep you at the Wynn or the Bellagio, but I know you stayed at a fine establishment. Do you want to tell us about that?
Oh, we stayed at the Silver Sevens. I went down with Dan Reynolds of Raptors HQ, and because, this is out of the not so deep pockets of RR, we tried to do it on a budget, and we did. The keeping it on a budget was actually pretty successful. However, Silver Sevens, which is a nice walking distance to the Thomas and Mack Center, it's only like a 15-20 minute walk, so it's convenient. It's right across from the Hard Rock, for those of you who don't know where it is. We got in about 1:30 in the morning the first Thursday, the night before the tournament. We had to switch rooms because we had bed bugs. So that was a great start to the tournament. I thought once that happened, I thought the Raptors were going 0-5 for sure, and just the whole trip was going to be a bust. But we bounced back.
Was this hotel being paid for by the hour or by the night?
I think some parts of it were paid for by the hour. It's definitely one of the cheaper options, and we saw over the course of the week a lot of the like low-end D-League guys that fill out the Summer League rosters. Mm-hmm. There were a handful of them staying at this hotel because...
Really?
Well, Summer League players don't get paid, right? And D-League guys, make somewhere from $15,000 to $26,000 for a season. So a lot of the time you're out here on your agent's dime, or like you're doing a bunch of camps and stuff while you're out here too. So there are a few faces I recognize at the hotel.
Mm-hmm. So the gonzo journalist comment was about... you immersing yourself with Bruno and Bebe again. Like something happened there where they took your camera or something and started filming?
Oh, Bebe took my mic.
Yeah.
That's a regular Bebe thing though. He likes to do that. He poaches the microphone. In this case, usually he just does it and goofs around. In this case, he actually conducted an interview with Pascal Siakam.
Yeah.
I put the transcript up on Raptors Republic the other day. He's definitely more lively and engaging than me. He got some nice laughs with Pascal. He mixed humor and being very earnest very well. He did the good journalist thing of sucking up to his subject while asking a question. Mm-hmm. It was good. He was a seasoned vet.
But was he? He's not part of Summer League though. He was just hanging around. I think he's been there for 3 years, and this is his fourth Summer League, I think, wasn't it?
So once you've done 3 Summer Leagues, a team can't make you go anymore. They can make you go in your first up to 3 when you're an NBA player. In this case, the Raptors saw that they had 5 guys they were already sending, which is already a pretty large amount by Summer League standards. Bebe just got married. He was just coming back from his honeymoon. So I think they looked at it and said, okay, we'd rather give these minutes to Jakob Poeltl and Pascal Siakam and let Bebe, relax a little bit, focus on the season. But he was around. He was scrimmaging with the team. He was working out a lot. Damari Carroll was around the team too. He wasn't scrimmaging with them, but each day that they were practicing, he was there getting a workout in. And Dwayne Casey was around too. And the plan originally, I think, was for DeMar DeRozan to be around. He's been around in years past. But with Olympic camp starting Monday, it didn't make sense for him to go back to Toronto to officially sign his deal, go back to Vegas for Olympic camp. But you usually see that. You usually see a couple guys around. Bebe is just much more noticeable than the other guys who kind of hang around.
Yeah. Yeah, and so let's just start with some of the Summer League analysis, man. And we'll wait till, I know Bruno was kind of exciting last year that, hey, there's a reason to watch Summer League, but this year he's kind of taken a step back. He's almost not even on my radar when talking about Summer League. It's got to be Norman Powell, and the question here is, did he even have any business being there?
Norman Powell?
Yeah.
No, none at all. The thing is with Norman Powell is that he is has earned a reputation already as such an unrelenting worker that the team probably looked at his offseason and decided that, hey, if he's going to be working out a crazy amount and we're not going to be able to rein him in, at least if he's at Summer League, we can control his minutes and his practice time. So he's one of a handful of guys like Trey Lyles probably shouldn't have been playing in Summer League. Devin Booker's probably too good for Summer League. Some of these guys who have had a year of actually contributing in the NBA, D'Angelo Russell's another one. That's, those guys maybe shouldn't be there relative to the quality of competition, but also they're going to be playing ball anywhere. So if it wasn't there, maybe these guys are all up in the Drew League. Maybe they're all up in Jamal Crawford's Seattle Pro-Am. They're going to be playing somewhere. So at least this way you're playing with your teammates. You're getting coaching from your own team's coaching staff. You're around your guys. And the team really, really liked the kind of leadership role that Norman Powell took on in this tournament and that he's taken on as the season wore on. So I think it's good to have him around and for the other young guys to see just how hard Norman Powell works. So even if on the court, you look, Powell averaged 19.8 points in 26 minutes and, with ridiculous offensive efficiency numbers, he doesn't need it, but there are lots of good reasons for him to be there and be around the other young guys.
Would this be the most competitive tournament or league he would play in this summer? Like you mentioned a couple of tournaments there in Seattle, whatnot, but generally speaking, is Summer League pretty much the most competitive tournament in the actual summer?
If you exclude international play, like obviously the Olympics, even that Olympic qualifier Canada was in, Corey Joseph took those not so subtle shots at some of the guys who chose not to play, saying this is the best competition you're going to get. Yeah. But yeah, it's up there. The thing about the Drew League is the impression that I get is it's awesome and it's really well run and it's a lot of fun. But I don't think day to day, who's going to show up for your opponent maybe and what kind of quality competition you might be playing. So you might have games that are more competitive than a summer league game, but a lot of the time you're probably going to be playing a team with no NBA players. So if you're a young guy like this, if you're 23, 24, even younger, I think summer league, it makes sense for everyone to play. And I know the league loves it. It's grown to 24 teams now. It's a huge 10-day event that they need 2 arenas for. I think everyone's pretty all in on it and really sees the value here.
And did you find that it's just more exciting? There's more people into the games with the tournament format the way it is. Just watching it on TV a little bit, man, it just seemed the crowd was more into it and there were more people there. Like if you compare this to Summer League of 2008 or whatever, it's a night and day difference.
Yeah, I think the league does a great job promoting this, and the NBA's very clearly had this edict where they want to be a 12-month-a-year league, and the playoffs run right into the draft, runs right into free agency, runs right into summer league. We're about to hit a little bit of a dead period now, but the league's done such a good job pushing summer league as an actual event on the calendar that people can get excited for. The NBA marketing machine is, undefeated for the most part. I think the big thing this time around too is that it's not that tough a drive from LA, and LA has D'Angelo Russell playing. They have Brandon Ingram playing. The Saturday that was Ingram against Ben Simmons, the number 1 pick versus the number 2 pick. They set a summer league record for attendance. I think that the attendance over the course of the day, which is 8 games over 2 arenas, was something like 16 or 17,000, which is that's a big number to pop for an exhibition game in the middle of July in Vegas. So
the Argos would kill for that.
Yeah, the Argos would kill for what, a dozen season ticket holders? I don't know. CFL's not a thing that I want to.
I don't know. I know I'm totally cutting you off on that, but I just read an article and saw the pictures coming out of BMO Field where they played football now, and they were hoping that the new arena would kind of make a difference in watching Argo football and be exciting, but it was just really depressing because the red even sticks out harder when it's empty. Yeah,
the issue with the CFL is that it's the CFL. So no matter where you play or how you market it,
in Toronto, right? At least, let's be fair. In Toronto, in Hamilton, it's huge.
Oh yeah, and if you go out to Saskatchewan, they love their Rough Riders. Yeah. But even when I was out in Vancouver, when I lived out there, I went to I think it was I don't know if it's conference or division championship game in BC, and even that was it was just an okay atmosphere.
Yeah.
It's not it wasn't anything great, but yeah, you get those. Saskatchewan loves that stuff. Hamilton loves that stuff. So Ottawa, I don't know if Ottawa has a team right now, or if I don't know if they have a team in the odd number years or the even number years, but
I don't know how it works really. I just don't know.
Okay, let's get
get back to DeLon Wright, man. I mean, we talked about Norman Powell being somebody who who really shouldn't have been at summer league. DeLon Wright's a dude that was too good for the D League all year long, but not good enough for the NBA. How did he fare in summer league? Was he in the same category as Powell, or did he still have something to learn from summer league?
I don't think it's fair to say he wasn't ready for the NBA. Unfortunately, for one,
for the Raptors, there's a log jam at the Raptors point guard position, which kept him out.
The term NBA ready that he got hit with coming out of the draft was silly. If you're a number 20 pick, very few guys are NBA ready as is. But if you're a number 20 pick, you've obviously got some things to work on. I thought he looked, offensively at least, like you said, he was too developed for the D League. Defensively, he got better as that time went along. The big thing for him that I noticed at Summer League is he looks much bigger now. He is all those Instagram gym selfies, they're paying off. He's Powell looked maybe 3, 4, maybe 5 pounds thicker through the shoulders and arms, but DeLon Wright, I don't know how to put a number on it, but he looked thicker, which is really important. His finishing wasn't quite where you'd expect it to be with that extra strength. He didn't shoot particularly well for the Summer League tournament. But in terms of like running the offense, I think he showed that, he's steady enough. It's a weird thing because like he's the point guard, but they were running things through Norman Powell so much because Powell's so much better than everyone there, that DeLon really didn't get a ton of time to show what he can do running the offense. The numbers don't exactly pop. I think he put up like 9, 5, and 4 over half a game, which is fine. I think he's entering a situation this fall where, again, he's probably going to be too good to go to the D League, and I think he's going to be fourth on the list of guys that might go, which since you can only send 3 at a time means he might not see a ton of time there. But I think he's a guy who, right now in the NBA could play some backup minutes and you'd be fine, especially at the offensive end. Defense, he's sound defensively. We just need to see more of that gym progress before you can think about, playing him in those 2-guard sets the Raptors like, because he's 6'5" and has some nice length, but he'd get bullied by some 2s. But if you're extrapolating the gains that he's got already, that dude lifts. So that's the right direction. The big concern now, obviously, is on Saturday, DeLon Wright dislocated his shoulder. So a shoulder dislocation, x-rays were negative. They popped it back in. A shoulder dislocation can go any number of ways with any number of recovery timelines. It sounds like because they popped it back in and there was nothing on the x-ray that there's not really any AC joint damage, which is nice. I don't know if Wright has a history of shoulder dislocation, which would then that changes what you think of it. I don't think it's a thing where you're going to enter next season with a concern about it. My concern would just be, he's been doing so well getting in the gym and adding that size and working on his pull-up three-point shot that hopefully he's not, hopefully that's not in a sling for any amount of time or anything like that and slow his off-season progress.
Yeah, but he did look stronger, and he's been on Instagram a lot. But you know what they say, the camera does add 10 pounds.
No, I saw him up close though. He looks good. He looks a lot better, or not better, but he looks bigger. AC does look better too. He's got those braces off, so he's smiling a ton now too.
He had braces?
Yeah, man. He had those Invisaligns last year. Oh. He's got those off now, so he's smiling all the time. Yeah. I asked Jakob Pertl about it, and Jakob said that it was DeLon was smiling more because Jakob's around, not because of the braces, which was pretty funny.
Yeah, because those two obviously know each other from their college days.
Right, they spent a year together at Utah. It was Wright's senior season, Pertl's freshman season, and their Utah coach was around a little bit at Summer League too, and that was their Utah coach played with Jack Sikma back in the day too. So there are all these connections with Wright and Pertl to the Raptors, which is it's pretty cool. I think Ryan Wolstaff from the Toronto Sun put up a story on all those connections, which it's pretty cool. It doesn't mean a ton, but you could see that they were a little bit comfortable playing together in the pick and roll, and Pertl found DeLon Wright a couple of times with some nice passes. So
hey man,
who knows?
If we had to get buddies in for the existing teammates, I would have gone for Sabonis and give JV some Lithuanian company there.
Yeah, they're going to be playing on the national team together. Sabonis, when I talked to him at a pre-draft workout, wasn't sure if he was going to play for the national team, but that should be that's huge for him, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Why would he not play for the national team? I mean, those guys the international guys love playing for the country.
Yeah, but sometimes when you're a rookie and you just get drafted, there are insurance issues that can come up depending on when you sign your rookie deal and what the insurance situation is like, especially with the tournament, with so much weirdness hanging over the Olympics right now. Like Jamal Murray wouldn't have been able to play for Canada even if he wanted to, probably, because getting a contract you haven't signed yet that's going to be worth $10-12 million insured for like an international tournament on a gym with slippery floors is it can get complicated. So,
all right, let's talk about Bruno a little bit, man. And what
do we
is
have to?
Well, we kind of. I think the audience, the listenership, expects us to convey the Bruno update here. And so Bruno D League year was basically they're trying to convert him into a 3-point shooter and essentially try to get him to run up and down the floor without getting his legs crossed up. The 3-point shooting, he was like 35%. What was he throughout the regular season in the D League?
Somewhere around there by the end of the year, yeah.
Is Summer League more of the same, or did you see a different focus on Bruno other than 3-point shooting?
I mean, threes were the big thing. He took 6 a game and he hit 35.5%, which is, that's pretty encouraging. The thing is, his shot is unblockable. So if he can get to a point where, if he can shoot 38, 39% eventually down the line, that's gonna have some value because theoretically his length should mean that he's able to play defense at some point in the future. The reality is right now, I think the team looks at it, his rookie year, he basically redshirted. He didn't play at all. He was just learning basketball and English. Last year was essentially his college freshman season. It was the first year he had ever played competitive basketball for an entire season with big minutes, really. So that D-League season, it was maybe disappointing for some through the lens of it was his second NBA season. But the team looked at it like that was his college freshman year. So now he's kind of, in terms of the development curve, he's only just now an NBA rookie this coming season. And I think expectations should be set as such. He's still, he improved a lot last year. And you look at some of his ball skills and some of his defensive instincts this summer compared to last summer, and you can see that there's improvement. The frustrating part for some is that, he's still pretty far away. Everyone likes to make the 2 years away from being 2 years away joke that Fran Fraschilla made on draft night, but it wasn't inaccurate. And 2 years in, Bruno is still at least 1 year away. So you saw him at Summer League, you saw him hit threes, you saw him, make some nice plays defensively where he helped with his length, and he had that great block at the rim on a clutch play in the fourth quarter of, I think, the quarter semis, the first elimination round. He had a couple good steals, gets out in transition and stuff, but you also see a bunch of mistakes that he makes because he doesn't know, where he's supposed to be, or he can't see the play unfolding. And then things like putting the ball on the floor out of the corner when a closeout comes. He's trying some new things. He tried a behind the back dribble a couple times. He's just telegraphing them a little bit right now. And it's clear that he's thinking through things very much. He's thinking about what he should do and what the defense might do. So he's not playing on instinct yet. But again, he doesn't have a lot of experience. So this is kind of to be expected. I think if the team were being honest, this is right about the development curve that they expected. I know at the end of last year, they were really happy with the progress that he had made in the D-League. I had higher expectations for his Summer League performance. He shot 38% overall, only averaged 11 points, and got lost a couple times on defense. But the important thing with Bruno is that even if you disagree with the pick and the strategy, you've got to keep that kind of 4-year window in mind. And through that lens, it's going in the right direction. If development is linear, maybe he gets there, but development's not always linear. He might stall out at some point, or he might just figure it out this summer and tear the D-League up next year. The thing about Bruno is it can go so many different ways, and it's to the point now where it was kind of an exciting and interesting pick because it was so weird and out there. But when you're looking at a 4-year window to evaluate a guy, I'm a little bit bored of saying, yeah, he's getting better, but he's not there yet.
Yeah, I've kind of downgraded his projection from Kevin Durant to Rashard Lewis.
Yeah, that's a slight downgrade. You're probably still okay. I think honestly, if he ever plays meaningful NBA minutes, it's the project isn't necessarily a win. And obviously, in retrospect, that's a pick they would have loved to be able to make this year or last when they had a D-League team in place, so his first year wasn't basically punted. But yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah. We'll talk about this again next summer, I'm sure too. When Bruno closes in on the all-time Summer League minutes record.
I think Bebe should have had that record by now.
Yeah,
so he should be up there at least.
Yeah, 3 years. Kyle Anderson's played a ton and is the all-time, the greatest player in Summer League history.
Or the Scrub brothers, they seem to be there every year.
No, they weren't there this year.
Oh, they weren't?
No, they were with Canada in the Olympic qualifier.
Good for them.
But the big one, Nate Robb has his jersey retired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
His Summer League jersey retired.
All right, let's.
That's the standard there. And Michael Beasley was still playing there this year.
What?
Yeah, super cool. Bees was playing for the Rockets. It was hilarious.
So let's move on from the Vegas. If you want to talk about anybody else that jumped at you, anybody from Summer League you think is getting a training camp invite?
Yeah, so I just want to mention quickly on Poeltl and Siakam. Obviously, Siakam we only got 15 minutes from. The energy looked great. The team's pretty high on him. I wrote that big feature for Sportsnet, like a big magazine-style feature, about kind of how he came to be drafted by the Raptors and why they're so high on him. So if you haven't checked that out, I would appreciate you checking it out. The other thing is Jakob Poeltl. The numbers definitely don't pop off the page. He averaged 6.8 points per game and 7 rebounds, which is, maybe you have higher expectations for the number 9 pick. But of all first-round picks who played in Summer League, he had the highest offensive efficiency on a points-per-possession basis and the lowest usage. So you think Jonas Valanciunas doesn't get his touches during the course of the season. There was no first-round pick more efficient with his touches than Jakob Poeltl, and no one got fewer than Jakob Poeltl.
Describe his offensive game for somebody who hasn't seen him.
honestly, in this tournament, it was mostly just like garbage buckets. It was like nice catches with a soft finish around the rim, a couple of second chance points. He posted up a couple times, and he had one really. Who was it against? I'm drawing a blank on who it was up against. It was a guy who's like a well-known D-League body, and like fairly strong. And Pirtle couldn't post him up. He's posted him up on the right block, wasn't getting space. Then he tried an up and under, and that didn't work. And then he had like a third move to go to in the arsenal, and that, he had some nice soft touch, and that worked. He didn't finish around the rim great at times on his post-ups, but he shot 67% for the tournament. He just didn't shoot a lot. But that one play kind of stood out where, other than tap-ins and finishes on the dive and stuff like that, he had that one play where he had 3 different post moves to go to on the same sequence. And it sucks that he wasn't strong enough to make the first 2 work, but that he had a third move to go to was encouraging. It's the honest truth is that he used 27 or 28 possessions in the tournament, and that's it. And most of those were second chance or just like quick finishes around the rim on the pick and roll. So it's tough to evaluate too much of his, his scoring game. I thought he flashed some nice ball skill working from the high post. He had a couple of nice assists. I think he averaged 1 a game, which, for a big man playing 25 minutes and getting so few touches, that's encouraging. We really haven't seen a lot. The nice thing about it is that Cooper Smither, who does a lot of our X's and O's breakdowns for us, he's going to have something this week that I think goes back and pulls from Utah video as well, to kind of go deep on Jakob Poeltl's offensive game. So if that description didn't do enough for you, Cooper will have something on that this week.
And what about Siakam? Like, what's Siakam's like NBA, not projection, but give me a comparable NBA player right now for Siakam.
The one the team likes to say is Bo Outlaw, which sounds like nothing, except then you look at advanced metrics, and Bo Outlaw was the best defensive player in the NBA by advanced stats 3 times in his career.
Yeah.
He
could guard 4 positions.
Yeah, individual defensive stats, you can kind of throw them out the window, but when they're that consistent about a guy's impact, that's pretty good. Right now, he's, if he were to play minutes right now, they would be energy minutes. He'd be hitting the floor, he'd be hitting the glass. The thing that stood out to me, I didn't realize, like, I knew he was athletic for how big he is. He is fast. Like, the way he got up and down the floor, and again, we're dealing with a 15-minute sample before he tweaked his knee. But he was like beating multiple defenders down the floor to catch these outlet passes. He had one nice play where he was running full speed. The pass was a little behind him, and he stopped short, corralled the pass, and finished nicely. He had a really nice offensive putback where, his vision on the play was nice, his timing was great, and he didn't muck up the spacing, hunting for the rebound. So there are a couple little signs. Right now, he's just an energy guy. He's going to see a lot of D-League time to work on the ball skill, to get that range out to, 16 to 18 feet, where the team thinks he might eventually be able to knock down shots. His jump shot's a little clunky mechanically right now. But yeah, and then on the defensive side of the ball, they think he could be, a big impact player with his energy and his athleticism. It's just, not quite to the extreme of Bruno, because this is a guy who averaged, he led the nation in double-doubles last year. It was at a small school, but leading the country in double-doubles and being 6th in PER is pretty impressive. He just needs a little work on some of the finer things, so he'll see some D-League time. He's probably, the 5th or 6th big man on the chart now that they have Jared Sullinger in, but who knows what can happen over the course of the year. Last year, we didn't think Bebe was going to be needed at any point either, so there might be a chance for him to get some energy minutes as the season wears on.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where Bebe fits in the whole big situation that we have right now.
I mean, right now, he's not taking I had a good conversation with him in Vegas. He's not taking the backup center spot for granted, but the team has basically said, it's no one's being handed anything, but it's his to lose. And the big reason for that is, as much as they like Poeltl with that number 9 pick, 20-year-old bigs contribute in the NBA very rarely. Especially skinnier
Bebe's
ones.
To lose the backup big position?
The backup center position.
Really?
Yeah.
So he's not.
Yeah.
So the chances of Masai actually addressing the backup center through trade or acquisition is.
Oh
is pretty much
no!
fine.
I'm basing this on the current roster.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
When I asked Dwayne Casey about his rotation, he's not going to say something like, "Oh yeah, well we're trying to trade for this guy," and if not, like if the roster were to stay the same, Bebe's penciled in as the backup center. I think maybe if he stumbles, they play Jared Sullinger as a small 5 a little bit. I think they could do some really fun things offensively.
Let's go there. Let's go there.
Okay.
But let's talk about exits first. So we saw Luis Scola leave and go to the Nets. which was
Can I one more thing on the summer league?
do it.
You had mentioned potential training camp invites, and I didn't address that question
do
because
it.
I talked about
Do
Pearl. One, Raptors probably broke the news that the Raptors have signed Fred VanVleet to a partially guaranteed 2-year deal, which means he'll be in camp. I would expect EJ Singler, Drew Crawford, and Davion Barry to also get those small partial guarantees on camp deals as well. Those are three guys the Raptors are really high on. Barry and Singler played it with the 905 down the stretch last year. They were trade deadline acquisitions. The organization loves those guys from a character standpoint and from coming in and playing a role around the NBA kids. And they're all very, very high character guys that, got along with everyone well in the locker room. Especially in the case of Singler and Crawford, they're going to have pretty substantial Euro offers. So I don't know if they'll be amenable to doing the D-League thing or coming to an NBA training camp. But those are the three guys I think, if you're looking at who the camp invites might be, those three guys, maybe Yannick Moreira, if Moreira's interested in a D-League season. I think it's telling that Sim Boular wasn't with the team in Summer League, so maybe they're looking for a new center at the D-League level, and Yannick Moreira could be that. And then I don't know about DeAndre Daniels. He looked very bad in his Summer League action, which is disappointing. And he lost basically all of last year with that Jones fracture. He played like 100 minutes in the D-League, and he's still working on putting weight on and stuff. But the fact that he played like hardly at all in Summer League and they own the draft rights to him should tell you what you need to know about where Daniels is on their radar right now.
Yeah, my money's on Nando De Colo coming back and playing minutes with the Raptors than DeAndre Daniels.
Yeah, De Colo's got that multi-year deal now in Moscow, but he's EuroLeague MVP. Who knows? Maybe he'll be. I think he was the MVP of the Olympic qualifying tournament too.
Yeah, I saw you break the Fred VanVleet news. Was that because he stayed with you at the Silver Sevens?
No. Fred VanVleet's got he can aim a little higher than the Silver Sevens.
All right. Yeah. Okay, let's get to some free agency talk, off-season talk. And so Luis Scola left the Raptors to join the Nets on a 1-year deal. And I was a little sad to see him go because I never really had a problem with the Scola as a player. I always had a problem with Scola playing, 23 minutes a game for us. When we hired him, when we signed him, I thought he would slot in around 10 minutes a game, provide that veteran presence, and just be the third big off the bench. Except his usage rate just went like through the roof, and he basically became a key cog in the starting lineup. Now we lose him. I would have been happy to retain Scola as a big on the bench who plays 5 to 7 minutes here and there. Your thoughts on Scola's exit, or even his tenure here, his short 1-year tenure?
I love Luis Scola. It's gonna suck to miss him just from the standpoint of having him around as a quote, having him around as a guy who has been through a lot in his basketball career. You hope that with the Raptors having made a 3-round playoff run, the time was ample enough for him to kind of shed some of that experience and veteran savvy to the other guys on the team. And this is going to be, guys like Lowry, Patterson, Ross, DeRozan, Valanciunas have been through 3 playoff runs now and this deep playoff run. So you hope you don't miss it that much. But you look at Scola and Biyombo leaving, that's a big character void. I know they think that Sullinger can fill a little bit of that, the domestic violence thing aside. The thing with Scola, though, is that the Nets ended up paying him $5.5 million. So the Raptors could have used their non-bird rights on him to give him like somewhere in the range of like $4.5 million. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm just ballparking. And I don't think that would have mattered to Scola, that extra little bit of change. But I think he fits what Brooklyn wants to do, where they want to hold over and improve the culture until they're in a position where someone will take their free agent money. From the Raptors' perspective, I mean, on the court, it's fine. Like Jared Sullinger's better than Scola. That deal that Sullinger signed, it's basically the same price as Scola, and it's well below market value. But Scola, he's, like you said, he did more than what was expected of him. And yeah, defensively, it didn't really work with him and Jonas Valanciunas. And by the end of the year, I was kind of pulling my hair out about the fact that he was still starting and playing fairly significant minutes. But that's not, that has nothing to do with him. That's how he was used. He was a complete pro. The fact that he shot, he hit more threes this year than he had ever attempted in his NBA career, which was great. He always, I feel like he drew a charge in the first 5 minutes of every game this season. I'll miss him, man. I'll miss him as a dude that's around the locker room. I'll miss him as I'll miss the way he looks on the court, his hair flopping around and stuff. Yeah. It's not a big loss.
No.
But like it'll be noticeable. Luis Scola was a fun guy to root for.
It's just he's one of those guys that any team could use on the end of the bench. And if he's willing to play limited minutes, why would you not have him?
Right, but at $5.5 million, then
I get it.
That conversation becomes a little tougher if that's what he wanted to stay with the Raptors. And then too, you look at the Raptors, they really, barring a trade, they really only had a spot to add one more big. So if it's Scola or Sullinger, you got to take the more talented guy, I think.
Yeah. No, I'm not debating that we should have retained him over Sullinger. It's just that if he was available. So let's talk about Sullinger now. He played for the Celtics obviously last year, and he's a different type of player than Scola. Doesn't have. Or Scola finally found some range last year, but Sullinger's got, he's not as good of a three-point shooter. He's got some weight issues. He's a better offensive player. I think he's a more physical player, obviously, than Scola. So he's coming in as a fill in the blank. Is he the starter for the Raptors? Because last year he started 73 games for the Celtics, so he's comfortable being a starter. And Patrick Patterson, as much as I love the guy, I think he's one of our best, overall all-around players. But he did have some issues starting and never really found the rhythm. Does Sullinger step in and take the starter role, and Patterson continues off the bench?
Yeah, I think that's what happens. I don't really buy the whole Patterson can't start thing. We're basing this off of like 5 preseason games, and then the playoff games he started, he personally only really had one bad game starting. He would be fine starting, and he's a starting caliber power forward. But if the team wants to use him off the bench and he's still getting that, 26 to 28 to 30 minutes a game, it doesn't really matter that much. I think the plan right now, the impression I got from Dwayne Casey is that, they'll compete for it, but right now they like Sullinger starting and Patterson coming off the bench. I think they can get more out of Sullinger than Boston did. Maybe not on a points per game basis, where Sullinger, he averaged something like 13 over the course of the last 3 years. But they like Sullinger's passing a lot. And the interesting thing, you mentioned that Sullinger's not a great three-point shooter, and he's not. He's shot 27.6% on 500 attempts, which, that's not good. The interesting thing, though, is that the Celtics offense had him in the corners almost never. He was barely ever in the corners. I think he shot something like 10 corner threes last year, whereas the Raptors have their power forward kind of flare to the corner on a lot of their pet sets. So, Casey mentioned to me that, Sullinger in the corner is a thing that they'll look at a little bit more. And I think you'll see, those are easier threes, and they're usually more open threes. They're a shorter three. So I think you'll see his 3-point percentage come up. He's not going to be a Patterson level marksman, I don't think, but if he can even hit down like 33% and become that kind of, low end stretch threat, I think that's important. And I think his passing fits pretty well. It adds kind of that kick the ball around the outside or attack the closeout and then make the next pass. That's something the offense needed a little bit, especially when DeMarre Carroll was out of the lineup. All of my concerns with Sullinger. Oh, and then he's an elite rebounder too. The Raptors, they pulled back a lot last year as the season wore on chasing the offensive glass because they were getting killed in transition. But if that's something they wanted to do, Sullinger is well suited to crash the glass alongside Valanciunas, which would be cool. And he's a good defensive rebounder as well. The concern here is obviously, the quickness in a Sullinger-Valanciunas starting defensive backcourt. Sullinger played most of his minutes with Amir Johnson last year, so his defensive metrics are great. The Celtics had the number 4 defense. Sullinger ranked well by things like defensive RPM, and I think defensive box plus minus. But it's hard to separate that from the fact that he was surrounded by really good defensive players, and Amir Johnson guarded the tougher big. So the Raptors have admitted as much that this is the challenge ahead of them, the Sullinger-Valanciunas defensive pairing. But if they made, they didn't make the Scola thing work. But Sullinger's, he's a little bit better of a defender than Scola. Maybe even, I've got to watch some more tape on him still to determine just how much better. But he's better defensively than Scola. So if Scola-Valanciunas was fine, I think Sullinger adds more diversity offensively, and I think he's a little better defensively. I think it's a good addition. It doesn't make up for all the losses the Raptors have at once, but considering that was like half of his market price, I like that signing. Do you like that signing?
No, I was surprised by it. I'm surprised that he came, and Masai Ujiri was surprised by it. I think one of his quotes was that I don't know how he fell into our lap because his value was definitely higher on the market. I think he got for like 5.5, and some of the contracts that went out there, I mean, I would not be surprised if he went for like 10, 11 somewhere.
He got half the money per year that John Lure got.
There you go.
On like a 4-year deal.
Yeah. So
he got like barely half of what Mirza Teletovic got. And I like Teletovic, but that's weird. And we've talked so much about like how building this culture, like we give a lot of lip service and you don't necessarily see the product of it. But when a guy looks at a team and he's like, oh yeah, I could start for a 56-win team that has great dudes to play with like Lowry and DeRozan. They just had a guy in Biyombo who came into the same situation and upped his value huge. I think they didn't get a meeting with Kevin Durant, but I think you're starting to see the returns of all this organizational equity the Raptors have built the last few years.
This might be I know he's not a big marquee name, obviously, but this might be the first time ever a player has turned down money to come to the Raptors. I can't think of another guy.
I can't corroborate that. There were reports at the time that DeMarre Carroll was offered a little bit more money elsewhere. We never found out where. Obviously, DeRozan left a few million on the table to stay, but that stuff we don't really find out about. I think in this case, David Falk, Sullinger's agent, was very clear that they left better offers on the table for this situation. So, I mean, that's encouraging. You can't go into the offseason with that expectation because these players have the right to get their money and whatever the market will pay them. But if you're Sullinger, you cash in on this 1-year deal, and then, if the Raptors win 55 games and go to the Eastern Conference Finals again, and he's starting on that team, his value might be even higher as the cap goes up again next year. It's a gamble on himself, but people worry about the conditioning and stuff like that. Sullinger just took a huge bet on himself.
Yeah.
So if that's ever a concern, he just put a lot of money on himself having a really good season. So that's encouraging.
He pulled the Rajon Rondo.
Yeah.
Yep.
Pull the Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. So now your comment about the defensive pairing with Valanciunas and him. I mean, if you do nothing, if Sullinger comes in and they make no improvement and just replace him with Scola, we're already better off. So anything you do is just gravy at this point.
Yeah, I mean, you lost Biz, which
yeah, we're gonna get there next actually.
Okay.
on the Biz thing. So we Scola out, Sullinger in. It's starter for starter. Patterson gets to stay on the bench, so we maintain that rhythm. Now it's a question of how do you replace Bismack Biyombo. And earlier comment was, well, currently the default big or big man is Bebe off the bench. And realistically speaking, do you think that's even tenable?
Well, I think it's tenable. I think the thing that people need to try to keep in mind a little bit is that Bismack Biyombo being as good as he was in that backup role was a huge luxury. Teams, it's not as if the Raptors just lost an elite backup center and now they have the worst, now they're in the worst position of any team's backup center. Biyombo was the best backup center in the NBA. So that hurts, but most teams, in most scenarios, you don't need your backup center to start 22 games and average 22 minutes. So I think if we kind of ratchet down what the expectation is for that spot, I don't think the backup center is playing 1,800 minutes this year, which is what Biyombo played last year. I think you're going to see Valanciunas push his 26 minutes up to around 30. You hope for better health. The big concern is if Valanciunas were to get hurt again, then you're looking at, starting Sullinger at the 5 or starting Bebe. I don't think Pirtle will be ready for a big role this season. If it gets to a point where, Nogueira is not playing well and they're comfortable with Sullinger there for spot minutes and Pirtle's getting 5 to 10, maybe you can get away with that for a rookie on a good team. But asking much more than that is a little tough. But I think, I think you're looking at Biyombo's role and it's a collective effort. Valanciunas has to be a little bit better, stay healthy, and play a little bit more. Nogueira's got to step in and play some of those minutes. You've got to get a little creative. I think the Raptors could do some really fun things offensively with Sullinger at the 5, and we saw in the playoffs how much fun the Raptors can be with how many good guards and wings they have. And you want to talk about getting minutes for Norman Powell and Terrence Ross both. Those smaller lineups are a good way to do that. So I think it's going to be a collaborative effort. It's a loss in that spot for sure, and like Scola, it sucks to see Biyombo go from a locker room standpoint too. But this is the reality of being a really good team sometimes, is that if a guy is willing to take a Biyombo deal or a Sullinger deal to play a year with you, the way the CBA is structured is that you're not going to get to retain them, probably, if things work out well. So you've always got to be ready to, have guys step up. Nogueira's going to be 24 this year. You have to hope he steps up. You bring in Sullinger, you find who you hope is, he's not going to be Biyombo, but you hope he's that next type of guy who delivers a big value, and you get creative. And this time last year, honestly, people kind of forget, but Bismack Biyombo had been non-tendered by the Hornets, and the Raptors were entering training camp where Biyombo and Nogueira were competing for the backup center role. So it's not as if the Raptors compared to this time last year are in a much worse spot. Biombo just blew away expectations.
Yeah. I just don't trust Bebe with playing like meaningful minutes consistently.
Look, I don't think anyone trusts him because the biggest thing you just said, consistency, and that's everyone around the team. I have a piece coming on Nogueira. I don't know if it'll be this week or next week, but about exactly this conversation. And the thing everyone mentions, including Nogueira, is consistency, and that's the thing. You can't send a guy into the gym and say work on your consistency. You can't send a guy to like a sports psych and be like, hey, work on your consistency. That's something that, whether through experience or growth as a person, a player, that has to kind of come naturally. And, it's going to be iffy. It's something he's not going to have until he does, or maybe he doesn't. So, you got to be ready to pivot. And I think they'll keep an ear on the trade market as guys become available. I think they'll give Pirtle a chance if Nogueira struggles, and then, like I said, I think they'll get creative a little bit too.
What's your gut feel? Does Ujiri make a move to get another big, or is Bebe it?
No, I think this is. I don't think another center is coming in. Yeah. I think he'll look, but the reality is you'd have to, you're going to be looking for either a big salary backup center. If you're going to try to make a big splash, and if you're going to do that, maybe you should have figured out the Biombo thing. But then the other thing is, if you trade Bebe and like a pick, what are you going to get back? There's not a lot of salary that can come back. Teams aren't exactly itching to trade away good young bigs on their rookie deals. So it's just, I think they'll be active looking for something, but I think they're going to end up where Bebe is the backup center entering the season. And I think I've always been a little higher on Nogueira than most, it seems, because I see the skill that's there. I see the length. I see the passing. And I just kind of hope as a guy grows up and matures that maybe he finds that consistency. I don't think it's likely, but, life's better if you're a little optimistic about things, I guess.
I honestly think our only trade chip basically is if Norman Powell gets to the point where he can essentially play rotation minutes, like 25 minutes a game, and that would make Terrence Ross somewhat expendable, because there's not a log jam right now at that position, but there is some luxury the Raptors have where if something really good comes along, they could lose one of those two and still survive. So that's
for sure.
Yeah.
And Ross would be the guy to go, because if you're trying to match salary, well, you don't want to send Norman Powell out on his minimum deal. That deal is way too good. He's a guy that would only enter a trade, I think, if you're talking like, if Westbrook hits the market or if Blake Griffin hits the market, then it's like, yeah, okay, well, if you want Powell, sure. But for matching salaries, Ross is the guy that's going to have to go out in a lot of scenarios anyway. But yeah, the big thing is, Powell is going to push Ross. I think it'll be good for Ross this offseason, to be honest, to have that guy pushing him. The thing is that Powell has to come out and he's going to have to hit threes, because the biggest thing Terrence Ross does, as much as people don't like him and don't like the inconsistency, he is one of the best probably 20 shooters in the NBA. If you look at his track record over 4 years in the NBA, that's a huge volume of three-point shots at like 37.5%, 38% from three-point range. I think he's at something like, I don't know, he's well over 1,000 3-point attempts in his career at that rate. That's hard to come by. So, Powell showed some really good progress from there. I think he was 11 of 21 in summer league on threes. I don't have the numbers in front of me. That might be wrong, but he was 9 of 18 at one point. So that's the big thing. If Powell's ever going to usurp Terrence Ross, he's got to be able to hit those threes consistently, because Ross's shooting's too important to the second unit.
Yeah. So,
can you believe that we're at a point in NBA history where I find myself defending Terrence Ross? Like, I don't enjoy Terrence Ross much more than anyone else, but everyone hates this guy so much and wants to trade him that, like, I feel like I've spent most of my offseason being like, hey, you maybe don't want to give away a 38% three-point shooter for free.
Yeah, nobody. I don't think he's frustrating, obviously, but the reason that I even brought him up is because if you had to look, what is our bigger need, another big or the wing position? I'd say it's a big right now, and I would totally part with Terrence Ross if he gets somebody like a equal caliber or a better caliber big instead.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I would. Terrence Ross is on the table for me if I'm Ujiri. So is everyone, but he's definitely a chip. When people wanted to make some signings, everyone was like, "Oh, if we trade Terrence Ross for nothing, then it clears up this amount of space." And like, for what? So you can pay Alan Crabb $18 million to try to be as good as Terrence Ross?
Yeah. Hey, quick question for you. For Sullinger, like, if he has a good year, we don't have his bird rights to extend him, right?
Right, it'd be the exact same situation as Biombo, where the most you can give him and go over the cap is a 20% raise. So you'd have to clear up cap space to re-sign him. So people need to understand this now. Sullinger's here for a year.
If this goes how you could clear out cap space to re-sign him?
Trade transfer.
There you go.
Yeah, and Patterson's a free agent too, and Lowry's a free agent, and those guys both have reasonable cap holds. So I'll do something in the next little bit on what once the Raptors sign a 15th guy, I'll do a cap update for 2017 so people can look ahead to it. But Sullinger is almost definitely going to be a Biombo case where he's going to up his value a lot if things go well, and then he's going to be too expensive, and then the Raptors will just have to find the next Biombo or Sullinger.
No. All right, so is our offseason done right now? What do you think? Are we pretty much wrapped up? I know you said a 15th guy, but that 15th guy, are you thinking that's like an end of the bench type dude, or is he?
I think they would like. I think they would like another small forward. The wing depth is fine, but like DeRozan, Ross, and Powell are all guys that size-wise they don't love playing at the 3 for big minutes. So I think they'd like to get another, James Johnson type where you play the 3. Maybe you can play some small 4. You just kind of at this point you have to wait the market out though because Solomon Hill's getting over $10 million a year, and there aren't a lot of those type of guys available. So I think you just got to wait and let the market cool a little bit, and then because all the Raptors have to spend is their $2.2 million biannual exception. So that's the price you got to get a guy on unless you can trade for someone. So now that Anthony Bennett's off the market too, like Anthony Bennett obviously could have been that guy.
We're gonna get there, Blake. We're gonna get there.
Yeah. So. You got to be. I think I don't think Fred VanVleet is the 15th man. I don't think they're going to carry 4 point guards. I think that's just a guy they like and they want to make sure they get him into camp. But I think they'll try to add another forward at some point.
Did you hear about Larry Bird's comment about Solomon Hill when he was out of contract in the summer?
No.
He goes, "I'll see you in the D League, kid."
Wow.
That's harsh, eh?
That is harsh. Raptor killer.
Yeah. So the 15th man, whatever, we'll find somebody. Okay, yeah. But my next thing actually was Anthony Bennett. He's back in the division. Were you surprised that he got another NBA chance? I think the number one thing is still tempting a few teams.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because inertia is a pretty powerful force. Once you're an NBA guy, you are an NBA guy. The Nets, we heard that he was at a mini camp with the Nets a couple weeks ago. I guess he worked out with them daily for a couple weeks before he went to the Olympic qualifier for Canada. He didn't look great for Canada. He looked to be in terrific shape. He didn't play poorly, but he was average. He played 15 minutes in the elimination game, which doesn't say a lot. But this is a 23-year-old guy still.
Yeah.
And if he's in good shape and I don't know, the shooting's never been there like it was supposed to be. It's the type of signing the Nets have to make in the situation they're in. It's 2 years at the minimum. The second year's non-guaranteed. It's I don't know, man. It's what they got to do. There are probably a dozen D-leaguers you could have justified taking a shot on over him, but he was the number one pick, and he's only 23 years old, and they got to know him pretty well this offseason. So, I'm still rooting for him. I hope he can be better. There are some skills there. I just don't know what he is in the NBA.
Yeah.
So good luck to him.
He's a guy sitting at the end of the bench. That's what he is.
Yeah, I look forward to his 4 Anthony Bennett revenge games this year.
Yeah. All right, so that's that. I think I had one more thing on my agenda today, which was Canada basketball a little bit. Before we go there, just briefly, much respect to Tristan Thompson, man. Having a long NBA Finals, playing all the way till June, and still suiting up for Canada. That was I did not expect that. He was the one guy that it would have been okay with kind of taking off the tournament, but he's the one who showed up.
Yeah, absolutely. That was great. He played really well too. He's a big leader for that program too. When he's on the bench, he's the guy. He's the guy yelling out directions. Him and Corey Joseph run that program at the senior men's level, and it's awesome that their commitment level to it is terrific.
Hey. Here's a guy available on the market that I'm just looking at remaining free agents, and I'm hoping this list is up to date. It's on Reddit, so it probably is. Is any interest here? You said you were looking for a wing type player, small forwardish. Lance Stephenson's out there.
Yeah, he was posting photos in a Vince Carter jersey earlier in the offseason. I still think they'd like someone who could play some 4 if they're gonna go that route, but you're also talking, you got to convince the guy to come for $2.2 million. So you really can't be choosy. Stevenson, the tough thing with him is that, it sounded at some stops like there are character issues, and at some stops like teams really like him. I've never gotten the chance to talk to him or get to know him really, so that would be something where if the Raptors signed him, I would trust that they had conversations with him and think they can, if you build a strong organizational culture and everyone in your locker room's a good dude and there's that kind of level of insulation where an outside presence might not mess things up, I think you can get away with a gamble like Lance Stevenson. I think that's part of the reason you build that organizational culture like that. But I don't know Stevenson well enough to judge whether he's the type that would fit for the Raptors or not.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a cop-out answer, but it's the truth. Like I don't know what the pluses and minuses on his personality are and how that would fit with the Raptors locker room. So
yeah, some other names. This is just only for interest here. Matt Bonner's out there. He's 36 years old. Charlie V is 32 and available. Tayshaun Prince is 36, available there. James Jones is available. He's 30. A lot of old dudes right there looking at that one last deal here.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
No, okay.
It's an ugly list who's out there right now.
Yeah. All right. So I think that kind of wraps it up, man. I think we've covered Summer League, covered free agency, covered the upcoming off season.
How are you doing? How do you feel about where they're at right now?
I'm a little disappointed that we didn't make a big splash. I think last year he made one big signing with DeMario Carroll. I was expecting him to make. I actually think he's on to Plan B or maybe even C with Jared Sullinger. I think he had hopes of.
Well, we know what Plan A was.
What was Plan A?
Pau Gasol was coming to Toronto.
Right there you
until
go.
Tim Duncan retired.
There you go. So I mean,
like that was almost done.
Yeah. But I find that team just generally use Toronto. Look at Steve Nash, Pau Gasol here as leverage in other negotiations, and I never really seriously thought that Gasol even considered here because from his perspective, he's looking for a ring, and the money's the same everywhere. He would be even if Tim Duncan did not retire, I'd still think there's room for him in San Antonio.
Yeah, according to reports though, like that deal was done. That wasn't a leverage thing. That deal was like pretty much done. The Raptors had also apparently, I think Josh Lewenberg had that the Raptors had agreed to Terrence Ross for Taj Gibson framework, and then Dwayne Wade decided to go to Chicago. So I guess their Plan A and Plan B, it feels like got blown up by things they couldn't control.
Yeah. Yeah. So
which is why you have a Plan C and Plan C. Sullinger at a discount and holding all your the Raptors would be remember last deadline when I shit on all the trade ideas because the Raptors had nobody to match salary. This coming trade deadline, they not only own all of their own picks, they own the Clippers 2017 first round pick, lottery protected, and that draft is terrific. They'll have Patrick Patterson at $6 million, Jared Sullinger at 5.6, Terrence Ross at $10 million. If it was something huge, DeMario Carroll at like $16 million. So they're gonna have the salaries to make a trade a lot more likely this time around. Ross and Valanciunas won't be a part of that poison pill provision that they were last year. So kind of holding, you get a discount in Sullinger, you keep DeRozan, and you keep your war chest intact. I wouldn't put it past the Raptors to make a deal at some point if someone hits the market. Boston can obviously trump any offer.
Yeah.
But
you asked me how would I feel. I said, I'm okay with the roster. It's not getting me too excited. Yeah. I think we've gotten slightly worse this offseason, and other teams have gotten a little better, which was somewhat expected. If
that's what I would have told you in May.
But if one of those moves you mentioned with Pau Gasol goes through, or with Al Horford or whatever it was, or Paul Millsap, I think we're coming out looking a lot better. But none of those panned out, and now we are here talking about Jared Sullinger. And the other minor complaint that I have with the offseason is with the draft. I did not agree with the pick. I thought we should have gone for a wing in the draft or flipped it. Drafting another project player, and that's what the guy is. I saw a little bit of Summer League Podol. He's a project player. He's going to help you, definitely not this year, maybe next year, if that. I felt like that, since there were teams actually looking to get picks in this draft, I think you were better off flipping that. Or drafting somebody like Valentine.
But what were the offers out there? Like you saw what Orlando had to give up for Ibaka, and it was insane. And you saw what the Raptors were asked for Ibaka, and it was crazy. Yeah. So I was in favor of trading the pick too, and I thought that's what they would have liked to do. But if they're, Masai Ujiri is fond of saying they're not going to have a gun put to their head, and it sounded like the teams that wanted to trade on draft night were trying to, get blood from a stone. So, we'll see. It's nice to keep that war chest intact. I know the team feels differently than you do about Pirtle. They're really, really high on him. Valentin, I get. I know people like him. The knee issue is kind of a thing. The fact that Nick Stauskas cooked him off the dribble at Summer League is maybe a little concerning. But I like him. Valentin comes off to me as like a smart player, a good shooter. I think offensively he'd really fit what the Raptors did as like a multi-positional bench guy. But we'll see. They're trying to do this thing where, the present is successful and the future's also bright. If they have to pivot and look a couple years down the line, they've got pieces that'll be ready in a year or two. And, that's what they're trying to do, and it's a strategy.
I'd say as some insurance, like if you want to pick up a 15th guy, I would look at someone like, because as great as Norman Powell has been for us, I think expecting consistency from him next year might be a little too much. I think you need that, as you mentioned, another wing there. So if Lance Stephenson isn't to your taste, I think Kevin Martin is somebody who's a good shooter.
Oh no!
Oh come on, you don't think so,
dude?
No.
Dwayne Casey would kill Kevin Martin.
Why?
Because he doesn't play any defense at all. Like none. You think Terrence Ross occasionally has lapses on defense? Terrence Ross's lapses are Kevin Martin's resting state. I would had they dealt Ross for someone in the offseason, I wouldn't mind Martin as a roster filler because then you need that shooting. But I don't think there's nothing that Martin does better than, I don't know. I've never been I know people wanted him last year at the deadline too. Yeah. Kevin Martin doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, I just have some insurance if 15th raw, whatever. I'm fine. Don't sign him. I don't give a shit.
I mean, and I want a guy who can play the 3-4 is what I'm looking for. That maybe isn't a realistic.
What kind of 4 though are you looking at? Are you talking about like the stretch 4-4, or are you talking like a 4-4?
I want someone that where like if they want to play a guard and 2 wings, someone like Carroll that can spot in at a little bit of power forward. I have it in my head that they're going to play some minutes with Sullinger at the 5, and I'm just trying to get creative with what you can do. I also as a bit of DeMarre Carroll insurance. So when I say a 3-4, basically what I mean is a big 3. Someone who can guard those LeBron, Carmelo types, because I don't think it's realistic to expect 82 games from DeMarre Carroll.
Yeah.
And they don't have someone, like there's not a James Johnson this year, as much as James Johnson didn't have the best year last year, and that's a dude I'll miss.
Chase Budinger?
Ew.
That's what's left, man. Drew Gooden's out there. There was some news about Drew Gooden.
Yeah, I think that was leverage play.
Mo Harkless?
Teams just floating the... Mo Harkless is going to get a big offer sheet from someone, I think, still. I don't know why it hasn't happened yet. I could see Brooklyn coming in with big money for Mo Harkless.
Yeah, he's a restricted, All right.
Yeah. I don't know, man. There's not much out there.
Yeah.
Kevin Martin can shoot still, at least, but...
barely. He's at 34% last year, I think he was. Which is
better than some of those other names you threw out there, but...
Yeah, I'm looking at the list here. It's
going to be underwhelming. You know what we got to hope for? Is that the Grizzlies buy out Vince Carter, and Vince Carter comes home on that...
one final year. Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
All right, I think we got to wrap it up, Blake. Thanks for coming on, man. Good summer league recap. What's next for Raptors Republic for the off season?
The next 2 weeks, I'm going to ease up a little bit, just because I'm worn out and pretty gassed, and I don't know. I have some feature stuff coming that I did the reporting on for summer league. I just got to go through transcribing and putting the stories together. I'll have something on Norm. I'll have something on Lucas Noguera. Something on the D leaguers from summer league. I got a few things in the works, but it'll probably be at least the next 2 weeks will be a little lighter on content. I think just because I need a bit of a break.
Yeah. So, listener, if you want to help Raptors Republic and send Blake to Summer League or whatever, again, go to patreon.com/Raptors Republic and help support Raptors Republic. And if you can, that is. So, patreon.com/Raptors Republic. Blake, thanks again. Listener, most of all, thanks for tuning into Raptors Weekly. We'll see you again next Monday. Talk then. Bye.